Yo, what's up folks, welcome to the video. Today we have some big news regarding No Man's Sky. So there is a huge update incoming and it's currently available on the experimental branch, so you can go ahead and test it out. You can do so in your Steam options menu and opting in the beta using the code that I'm providing right now on the screen. Of course, I'm also going to put it in the description box in case you don't know it already, but just like in the previous video, I'm going to urge you to make a backup of your save files just in case something bad goes wrong, like getting them deleted, or in case they get corrupted. I know some of you didn't listen to me last time and you had to pay the price. Unfortunately, you'll have to do this quite often because there's still a ton of bugs that get fixed all the time. So this update that's about to come fixes a lot of stability issues. There's of course a ton of gameplay fixes and improvements, and we're going to go over them in just a second. But just like in the previous video, I'm only going to cover the most important ones, and I will provide you a link where you can check every single change that is about to come. Typically, after the experimental branch is announced, there's like a couple of days at most up until it goes live, so even if you're on a console right now and can't test it out, don't worry, it's gonna come up at most at the end of this week. But without further ado, let's get to it. So starting off with the issues, the first one that was fixed is of course the one that prevented planets from being added to the discovery timeline when exiting certain ship models. I'm not sure if this affected me, I didn't see it, but I know some of you reported in the comment section that you had this problem, so hopefully this time around is gonna be 100% fixed. Also fixed an issue that prevented players from using Pulse Engine to escape between waves of Sentinel space fighters, and this was something that I actually included in a tips video that I had. I never actually had a problem to use Pulse Engine in between waves, but I know a lot of you have reported this problem. So yeah, finally we know that there was actually an issue, because I honestly didn't know it even existed. It didn't manifest to me, but I'm glad to see it fixed. Of course, another huge one is the issue that could cause base NPC workers to become unresponsive after moving or deleting your base. This was again something very common. I didn't have it, but a lot of you reported it, so you know what, this is exactly what you needed because the base missions are super important. Also, substantially increased the length of time fuel lasts in hydroponic trays, and this kinda sounds like a huge buff to freighter farming, if I'm not mistaken. Typically hydroponics is the one that grows plants and you put them on your freighter, because if you're on a planet then you might as well just put biodomes, and this is actually really good. You only have to like recharge them every so often, and now that it's substantially increased, it means it's definitely an indirect, at least it's an indirect buff to farming on freighters, so I am really glad about that. But it's also going to be on planets if you're using them on planets as well. There were a lot of crashes being fixed, such as the ones related to creatures, related to terrain generation. There was an issue with PC shader compilation when the game first booted, which would occasionally result in a crash. I also had this when I first booted up the game, but I never experienced since then. Of course, various performance improvements, and the biggest one that I'm most excited about is the one that improves the load times, and these are quite significant. I was really surprised when I saw them. So it's 5 to 10% improvement to warp times and 30%, a whooping 30% to initial game load. And like, this is my biggest gripe right now with the game because it takes so long to load. Even if I put it on an SSD, my game is currently running on an SSD, which is like really fast. So it's not that I'm bragging, but it's just that it's strange to see very long load times on an SSD for a 10 GB game. So 30% is definitely awesome. Of course, some shader generation to boost performance on lower PC. So yeah, definitely gonna be useful to you guys who don't have top of the line computers. This update should definitely give you a little bit of a difference compared to how you played right now. I have played on the experimental branch for some time, and I can honestly say that it's actually surprisingly stable and good, and especially the performance. Like, there's definitely a noticeable boost in performance that I'm feeling right now, even though my PC is, a little bit better than the usual. Another issue fixed is the one that incorrectly limited the number of storage containers that could be built on a freighter, fixed an issue that could prevent construction in the freighter base, and of course fixed an issue that could cause the nearby building scan on the signal booster to fail, and I actually had this happening to me a number of times, not just one time, and it was pretty annoying. It would not do anything, it would not show anything for me, and it would be like super frustrating. So I think this mostly relates to multiplayer. I'm not really sure if it's like a issue that also appears in single player, but from my experience it always appeared in multiplayer for some reason. So yeah, there's no distinction here, so I'm hoping it's fixed for both, but we'll wait and see. Another big one is the one that prevented damaged frigates from being completely repaired, and this is actually really good. I know some of you had issues completely repairing them, and it kind of sucks having to send them like half damaged or so into combat or into missions, because they're pretty much useless that way. Marked icons are now automatically cleared on arrival at the marked target. I'm not sure how I feel about this. I honestly liked the fact that the marked icon would continue to exist even after arriving at it, because more often than not I would need to come to it again. So for example, what if I want the portal icon to be permanently present so I can always see it? This way I don't have to mark it down with a signal beacon or something like that. I'm not really sure how much this changes. I'm not sure if this is to missions or to any type of icons, but there were situations in which I actually found it really useful to have marked icons not disappear or getting cleared, you know. So I'm not sure, I haven't tested this out, but it kinda sounds double-edged, at least up until now. There are some changes to the biological horrors as well. Of course, we have combat music now being triggered when fighting them, and this actually seems quite good, but the one that I'm most curious about is the slightly increased damage dealt by biological horrors. So it seems like, just like with the previous update, this one also further like buffs the encounter a little bit, in the sense that they buff the NPCs, they can do more damage to you. Of course, in the previous update the critical damage or the critical area on their models was significantly reduced, and you couldn't deal bonus damage as easily as you could do in the past. So this was actually done in two ways. This entire encounter was made a little bit more difficult in two ways. First, they reduced that critical area damage that you could do on them, and second of all, they have increased their damage. But since it's just slightly, I'm not really worried. I mean, it's not that hard to deal with them. It's just that they kind of reduced the number of eggs. So pluses and minuses, I don't really mind this because I'm not doing this method anymore, but for those who do, well, you're gonna have a little bit of a hard time doing this from now on. Of course, the mining beam also had its issues, and some of them were fixed, like effects displayed wrong colors in multiplayer. Another one would be that multi-tools would display the wrong ammo count for the Blaze Javelin. I don't really use Blaze Javelin, so this doesn't really affect me, but the one that I am super stoked about, and something that I had a huge problem for a very long time, is multi-tool being invisible in photo mode, and this actually gets fixed finally, like almost a month after the game has been released, and we finally get a fix for this. It's so annoying finding a very beautiful multi-tool and not being able to look at it unless you're in first person, because if you're in third person, your only choice is to actually, you know, go in photo mode, but even that didn't work. So finally we get this. This is probably the biggest one that I'm excited about in this entire update. I don't really care about the rest so much, maybe about the loading times, but this one is definitely on top of my list. There was also an issue affecting melee while sprinting that could cause an animation glitch, and it seems that this is finally fixed. From my understanding, this could affect when you like just normal sprint and press Q, and it will like kind of stop in its track, like your character would stop dead on, like it got stuck or something. I had this happening for me on a number of occasions, and it only happened in third person view. I'm not sure if that is the specific issue that is getting fixed, but if it is, then this is a very good change, because it's been here from the very start, and I'm not sure how intended that is. I'm not sure if this fix is aimed towards that, but I think somebody should look into it, because I know when I just normal sprint and press Q, my character kind of gets stuck in like an animation. So yeah, I think that is what it talks about here, but I'll have to do some further testing for this. And of course we have a ton of other visual improvements, especially if you're playing on 4K, so the appearance of clouds is also increased. There's some visual improvements to some exotic biomes, visual improvements to space station technology merchants, and increase the visibility of underground toxic hazards, visual improvements to buried technology modules. So again, as I've said, a lot of stability increases, a lot of visual improvements, and all of these in one single update. So it seems that Hello Games is continuing this cycle of improving the game and making it better, and it's currently clear that they are focusing on bringing this game up and making it as stable as possible. And I think only when they're like 100% satisfied, then they will move to like the online events that they have promised or the multiplayer events. I'm not sure, we still have the Quicksilver that we don't know much about, and I'm pretty sure that has to do with the fact that they are aiming to bring like regular updates which also involve regular online events. I guess we'll have to wait and see, but nonetheless, these were the patch notes for today, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, then a like and a subscribe would be super appreciated. Also, don't forget to activate the notification button, and I will see you guys in the next one.